Hello, we are live and we have all our amazing people here. If you're here, if you're watching us, just leave a hi. Let us know from where you're watching. Um, and I hope you're excited about this topic that we are also, but we'll see where this conversation goes. We have Sindur, who is all our mentor, teacher, director, everything. She's here. We have Surbi, who is also a backbred graduate, and we have Eva here too. And so I'm excited for this conversation and where it goes. I'll just give a little bit of like a background of why I chose this topic, and then we can like open the floor for like how this discussion goes. I think very recently there was like a conversation that was happening in one of the groups that we are part of about, how hand signal and reassurance that we use in Bach's way, and how the dogs respond to it, and how is that very different from like a trained behavior of a stay, because at the end of the day you're expecting a similar response from the dog, behavior wise. And I felt like that was a great starting point for us to have a conversation between how communication and trained behaviors, is there a difference? If there is a difference, what is the difference? And do we, as a Bucks community who's following the Bucks way, prefer one over the other? So I felt like this might be a good conversation to start off. So I thought I'll give that introduction, and then you can like tell me what you felt about that conversation, but also like what did you want to add to this?
I remember this discussion in the group, and I think that from an outside perspective, it might look, because in the video there was this guy using what would look like a hand signal with a group of 10 or even more dogs. And it looks like similar to what we do, right? We use a hand signal, and with it we communicate different things to the dog on the other side, right? For me, the difference is in the fact that when I use communication, because I don't use training with my dogs, I don't promote training to my clients, is that I'm interested in what the dog on the other side has to say back to me, what they are experiencing. And I feel that in training, that part is missing. In training, I feel it's okay, I want to achieve this result and I don't care about anything else. But with communication, it's always different, it's always evolving, it's really nuanced, and it really helps you understand the dog on the other side, I feel like.
Yeah. Surabhi, Sindhu?
Yeah, I think just building off of what Eva said, I think there's a lot of nuance, right? To this piece, and especially I think with context to the video that you're speaking of, Sajana, it can seem like what asking a dog to wait using let's say some form of a hand signal versus using hand signal as a communication can look the same, but there's a lot of nuance there, right? A lot of that nuance I think has to come down. A lot of that nuance comes down to obviously how the dog's responding, what the dog's body language looks like. So are you able to sort of take that into account? Are you able to take into account the dog's choice to engage with that communication, not engage with that communication? I think a lot of it also comes down to the intent from the human being, right? Uh, is my intent to ask my dog of something and then be open to what my dog has to say about it, or is my intent to say no, no, there is no choice, you are doing what I'm asking you to do, and that's about it, and I expect immediate compliance, right? Um, so I think in this particular case, in the context of that video, I think for the when we don't take that nuance into account, I think it can look deceiving. But I think there's a lot of like subtlety to that, that I think just comes with one having an understanding of obviously what is the difference between the two, but also then learning to read that body language and learning to read like your own intent. I think that's what I'm.
Yeah, so I think like both Eva and Subi touched upon the point of a response from the dog too, right? Like it's a two-way communication in that sense, and also the fact that there is an option for the dog to opt out of what you're asking or not respond in the way you're expecting to respond. And I think that was one of the primary differences. And of course there's a lot of again, intent matters, because why are you asking what you're asking, what are you expecting your dog to respond to, and what is your go to, let's say, when your dog is not responding, right? Because even if they are not responding the way we are expecting, I think there's also doubling down of training or like escalating the training methods, because it comes down to either your dog is not trained well enough or you're not doing the training right. So there's that conversation, but not so much as to why, what's happening, like what are we expecting of the dog and how is the dog responding. So I think that's what you kind of summarizing some of the stuff that you both said. Sindhu, you have anything to add?
Yeah, sure. So I think it took me a while to recollect what conversation you were talking about, and um, that kind of training of visual cues is also a form of communication. It's not that it's not. So I think communication is a superset, while communicating cues to get trained behavior is a subset of it. It's a form of communication, a single form of communication. And what is it that you're saying when you give that cue? It's like direction on stage, right? When you get the cue, you do the thing that's meant to follow, and so there is a very specific expectation of set of actions that come on the other side of it, which is that here's the cue and you are expected to do this, and if you don't do what you're expected to do, then dot 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 dash dash dash, and that dash 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 now differs from different schools of training. If you don't do what you do, what I ask you to do, I will train you more with treats, I will train you more with punishment, I will train you more with, I don't know, bad attitude, like whatever, right? Like, but basically it's that's what it is. Whereas I think communication, and quite honestly, it's very telling on us that we seem to think that that is it, like that is communication. If that is all communication is, I think this is like a reminder that we need to look at the communication around ourselves and how people around us feel. Because if that's how we're talking to our friends and family, saying, hey, do this, and that's what we're expecting we're going to get in return, you're probably leading an extremely entitled life, and probably this conversation is not going to be relatable to you, uh, but that's not what most of us do, right? Communication takes on a lot of other forms. For instance, negotiation. And again, negotiation is so poorly understood. When we say negotiation, a lot of people think that negotiations are these typical capitalistic, win lose situations that you have to get into. And so you have to kind of come out of it on top. And so if what you've said is not the behavior that you get, then you've kind of not come out on the top, right? And so you have to figure out how to get there. But the truth is that for those of us who pay attention to the way the world works around us and put effort into maintaining relationships like friendships and family and so on and so forth, we know that communication is a lot more than that. There's a big part of it that is listening. There's a big part of it that is yielding and giving and sort of making things work for you and so on and so forth. And somewhere in there, you're also clearly trying to express what your needs are, and hoping that this effort that you put into this relationship is going to come back to you, in that this other individual is going to say, okay, I see your need, and I would like to meet that too within my capacity, right? um, but it is a conversation that people, and that seems very evident and obvious to me. Like, it seems like, duh, like how can you think that communication is just about commanding? Like, how is that it, right? How do you not see the difference? But then I realized that I think the challenge with us seeing that difference is because somewhere we have to accept the whip. Our relationship needs a second look at, the kind of communication that we're doing, the kind of pressure that we're putting, the kind of expectation, the way we are flexing our privilege, our species privilege when it comes to a dog. We have to look at those things. And I think that's a very uncomfortable thing for people to look at. Because recently I had a conversation where the conversation was about, does our dog love us? But then when I brought up, well, if you're going to talk about questions like, does your dog love you, we have to talk about, where is your relationship at and have you put the effort in it? And promptly what was pointed out to me, and it has happened multiple times, right, is, oh, but that's not a place we're comfortable going with clients because we don't want to talk about this relationship. I think if that's so touchy that you want to talk about love but not about relationships, then I can understand why you're not even willing to explore that there are forms of communication that you can do with a vulnerable being that is not a one way. Hey, I set expectations and you deliver, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting that you brought up this bit about how relationships in our own life look like. And it takes me back to the conversation I had when we were having during one of my backbed submissions of the same topic. Like, how is reassurance different from training stay or like wait, through treats. And I remember struggling to find examples back then where I could say, okay, fine, like if I'm expecting a conversation and let's say I'm expecting a certain behavior from another individual, then I do not have examples around where it did not involve some form of consequence. Let's put it that way, because there is some amount of, let's say you do get the connection or you do get love or you do get things that you desire, or you're stripped off of all of it or whatever is important to you, and there is that some consequence that is involved, which I think a lot of us, I think, while we were being brought up to, be it our interactions with our caregivers, education system, partners, friends, there has been some amount of that playing out in those relationships. And so it's so hard sometimes to come down to that example of, how can this look like? What does, I mean, someone who has modeled this for us, someone who has offered that example for us. So I think it's very interesting that you bring up the fact that, do we even have these examples? And I think a lot of us do, but we don't think of those as communication. We only look at things as trained behavior. Like, I need to get this behavior out of this individual for whatever reason, and then the only way that we seem to find that end goal is through trained behaviors, through consequences. But we seem to like forget all of the other ways we tend to communicate with people whom we like, we don't like, we have a great relationship, we have baggage, all of it, and there is a lot of communication involved there too.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's not just consequences, right? I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted because dude is looking like he's found something interesting. And considering that I live on a farm, that could be anything from a rat to a snake. So I'm just trying to figure out if I should continue sitting here or I should move. Um, um, and look, relationships are going to be, I mean, there are going to be instances where there are consequences. So that's one thing, right? Which is, we do, I mean, dogs also mete out consequences, right? So if I did something that the dog doesn't like, the dog's not going to trust me as much. So there is going to be a consequence to how I present myself. But there's a big difference in consequences being meted out by somebody who has agency, like the dog, the kind of consequences that the dog can affect on me versus the ones I can affect on the dog. There's a huge imbalance there. So I think it's a better example of looking at this would be if you are having a conversation with somebody who you consider an equal and you're there trying to have a boundary or something of that kind there. And how do you do that with somebody you respect, right? And how would you draw a boundary there? How considerate are you? All the things that go into it. So I think that's one thing that we need to think about, because I think, if I remember right, that conversation that you and I had, Saujanya, was where the parent with the child, again, that power structure, and we
Yeah.
exploit it left, right, and center, right? Because we can do it, we do it. I think that's one. And then the other part of it, with especially with things like reassurance, I think is um, communication with the intent of giving something to you, giving something that you need, giving a part of me to you. Whereas communication with wanting to get something from you, those are two different forms of communication as well, right? If you're going to view it as a, and this is the problem I have with people who come through the doors who can't see past training, and then continue to ask me, okay, how do I do this the box way? But at the end of the day, if what you're trying to communicate is do what I ask you to do, and how do I communicate that the box way? Sorry,
Hmm.
no,
Yeah.
I don't have a
Yeah.
vocabulary for that message.
Yeah.
Okay, do what I want you to do, that you can't say it the bugs way. It doesn't exist, right? Instead, we have a bunch of other messages that we give and don't mask it again. And this is again the thing, right? Is, hey, I tell them the hand signal is about telling the dog I'm there for you, and somehow that translates to I'm there for you, therefore you will do what I ask you to.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I remember just now when you were talking, Sindor. So I adopted Bart right at the same time that I found Barks, and I remember him at the beginning when he started to come out of his shell. Everything was no, 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 and I remember us standing in a on a street, and we couldn't go in the direction that Balt wanted to go in, right? Because there was a lot of traffic, and I knew that that would be just like too much for him, and I was like, okay, like we cannot go there. And before Barks, what I would do, I would just pull him in the direction that I wanted to go, right? No big deal. But then I was just like standing still in the direction that we had unfortunately had to go, right? We could not go in the direction that Balt wanted to. And we were standing there so long, and I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be so hard. Like listening to this individual will be so hard. But then he was just like, okay, let's do it your way. I'm coming with you, right? And I was like, oh my God, there is another way. It's not the easiest way sometimes for some people, but with time, it actually got much easier. In fact, like it became a partnership, really, right? Because I know that when he says I cannot do this, I don't want to do this, it's like it's okay, because I also don't want someone to push me into things that I don't want to do, ignoring what I have to say. And I think this was one of the biggest things that Barks gave me. It was like putting myself in the dog's shoes, because before that I never did that. I was like, I of course I know better than you. Like you are just a dog. How would you know what's the best for you if I'm this all-knowing human who knows everything, right? And it was a very interesting journey for me, and I'm so happy I took it. It was not the easiest at times. It was very hard, because when you are, I think, so used to telling the dogs how they should act, that you don't even think that pulling them in the direction that you want to go, as you don't see it as a big deal. It's a huge mind shift that you have to do. So
Yeah. I think I'm also thinking a little bit. I mean, I definitely resonate with the power dynamic piece that Sindhu brought up, but I'm also thinking about, I think, just a general understanding of what it means to have like effective, meaningful communication with others. And I think so much of what is assumed as effective, meaningful communication has everything to do with the message from the sender. right? So it's all focused on, let me craft the message as beautifully, as perfectly as possible. Let me get the tone right. Let me make sure that it's succinct, it's brief, all of whatever the jazz, right? And then once the message is out, my communication is effective. But that's not how communication works, right? Communication is meaningful and effective if the way that you intended the message is delivered by the other person, and there is space for the other person to respond to that message and align and build understanding together. That's the full loop that makes communication effective and meaningful, right? So it's not just like a one time activity, it's just this like back and forth till you get to that place of understanding and alignment. And I'm thinking about, things like with Masti, for example, every time the doorbell rings and I have to go to the gate to open the gate, I'll use the hand signal asking him to wait, and I know he's not going to listen to me, right? Like he has to come up to the front of the gate to see who's come there. And honestly, like, I still do it because I'm like, okay, let's see if it works. But at the same time, I understand that he feels the need to be there just to make sure that everyone's safe, there's no weird person out there. And I appreciate him having my back, right? I appreciate knowing that when I open the gate, especially late at night when Arnav's not at home, people can see that there's a dog right there next to me. Like it, and I think like to a step beyond the fact that, oh my God, he's not listening to me, versus, okay, but what is he offering in the process, right? And is there meaning that I can make with what he's offering, and how does that fit into then the context of our relationship? So I think those were the two things that I was thinking about. Yeah.
Very interesting points from each of you. And I think one of the things that are underlying most of the conversations that all of you have said is respect to the other individual, and also how you would treat this individual who is not a human, and how do we place ourselves in that dynamic, because do we consider ourselves superior and as Eva was mentioning, all-knowing human being, where we know the best about this dog and things like that. So there is some amount of, obviously, the dynamic, the human non-human animal dynamic. There's also just the power dynamic of this relationship in itself, right? Because there are different kinds of relationships, and there is some amount of power dynamics when we are bringing a dog home in our house and expecting that dog to get used to this household and the rules, the random rules of this household and this human. So I see that a lot of the conversations are underlying this particular narrative. Is there anything you want to add about this bit?
I mean, I hear you on the respect piece, but I feel like it's a little, I think respect is still quite like big, right? I think for me, like, it's also like, do we have capacity to even think of the other? Do we have capacity to even like keep the other in our mind? Like, respect feels very like bigger than that, right? Like, it brings in like so many different ideas of, um, like, I don't know, like morality, social behavior, etc. Like, I think to me, it's a lot about like, do you even have regard for this other being, with you? Because if you do, then you do automatically start thinking a little bit about like, what would this being feel or experience, or what is going on there. So I feel like, I think to me it's more than respect. I think like, is there just regard for your dog in this relationship at all? Yeah.
Actually, I would say that, to me, it almost feels like that is respect. That
Hmm.
regard itself. If you, for instance, think about situations where, um you talk about, do I respect a child, right? Like, do I
Yeah.
respect, and what are we talking about when we say respect? It's not respect a child doesn't put the child on a pedestal, but understand that that may be a tiny human being, but that human being still has boundaries, still has things that bother them, and just being mindful of that. Or for instance, when you say, respect women, what are we saying? It's not really much other than consider us.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think, and you're right, I think maybe using the word respect, I think we're kind of making it bigger than it probably needs to be. The ask is really small, and maybe we are
Yeah.
gaslighting those that we choose not to give this recognition to by hiding behind the weight of the word respect. But really, the ask, if you look at it, the ask is very simple, which is, can we take a moment to acknowledge that this other individual has something going on,
Yeah.
and that it's okay. Everything doesn't have to be about us getting what we want with constant disregard to what the other
Yeah.
individual, like, we don't have to protect ourselves from that. There's also, I think, this huge fear that, and again, this is so cultural and so like, these conversations just keep coming back to this, right? We have this huge fear of regarding the other, right? It almost feels like if you regard the other, somewhere you're hurting yourself. But the
Mm.
truth is, and this is something that we've all seen within Bucks, right? The more we seem to regard the other, the richer our lives seem to get in ways that we can't articulate. And it's ridiculous for me that we seem to like stand here and say, hey, come discover this richness, come. And there are people like, no, I don't want this. Right? What are you afraid of? No, you can't be talking about things like this. This can't be happening. Like all the skepticism around it, I feel like saying, you know what? Too bad. This is not for you. Like you're not ready for this. Don't get this. Don't take this. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, but the jokes apart, I think the point I'm trying to make is, I think we have to get away from the self-sacrificial narrative that has come to kind of cling to the box, where this is, oh, it's so difficult to do, and it's not about yourself at all, and it's self-sacrificial. I feel like I'm one of the most selfish people that's like walk the planet. I don't feel self-sacrificial at all. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm getting so much more than what I earlier thought I could get. That felt like a chore. That, when I was in that phase with my Excel sheets and trying to be this perfect person and have this perfect dog, and trying to get all my training in place and so on and so forth, we had that conclave about self discipline. It required me to exercise a lot of self discipline. Now I feel like I'm in this extraordinary place of embracing my mess, their mess, and all this love and mushiness and all that. It feels like no effort at all. And the more I pay attention to them, the more like, this conversation that we had about love, right? Recently was a lovely one, right? Which is, love is not, again, we make things like love feel like it's something that we want to receive, right? Like, but when I think about love, and when I think about the love I feel for, Uttam, my dogs, and I think about it, it's giving, it's not receiving.
Mhm.
I feel that within me, right? I want to have a place to go. I want somebody to fuss over because it feels good to me. It's not self-sacrificial. This is so, it defies the laws of economics, which is why economics hate emotions, right? Because it defies the laws of it. Because we gain more when we give more of these things. When we see another, we feel seen. That's the truth, right? When we see another, we feel our place, we feel our purpose, we feel connected, and we don't feel alone. And I think these are very powerful things. And maybe you're right, Surabhi, in bringing up that term and flagging it, because we're kind of throwing the baby out to the bathwater when we don't want to do this, right? Like, oh, they're talking about insane set of things, right? But we're not.
Yeah.
They're saying, listen, individual, pay attention. Meanwhile, hey, intersectionality, hello, I'm also an individual, despite the fact that I'm a woman. I'm also an individual, despite the fact, despite the color of my skin, I'm also an individual. Pay me attention too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
But
it.
I think,
Yeah.
Sindur, what you're also pointing towards is just like, I think the space where some of these relational beliefs also get really contorted, right? Where, for example, and I think one of the, you like, if I had to think about, um if I had to think about a lot of the way that Indian women are raised, Indian women continue to exist in their relationships, they are very self-sacrificial, right?
Yeah.
They put others' needs above themselves
Yeah.
at the cost of abandoning their own needs. And when they are in a relationship where there is a power dynamic, it's almost like it's a very contorted reclamation of power, right?
Yeah.
Contorted reclamation of like self that emerges from there as well. And so I think, like, again, it goes back to that power dynamic. I think it goes back to that intersectionality, that this capacity to regard the other one is not self-sacrificial, but you can also regard the other without losing regard for yourself,
Yeah.
right? And like the two can coexist, and I think that is also, there's a lot of deconditioning for that as well.
In fact, I'll go as far as saying that, the more you spend time regarding the other, the
Yeah.
better you get at actually regarding yourself.
Hmm.
Mm,
And that truly is the problem. You haven't regarded yourself sufficiently. You
yeah.
haven't met your needs sufficiently.
Yeah.
Therefore, you're dysregulated. Therefore, you're demanding things of others around you. You're now,
Hmm.
there, that is the issue. And you guys know this, right? A lot of the work that you do comes back to, okay, why is this frustrating you? This is not a dog thing, this is a you thing.
Yeah.
This is frustrating you, right? Like, if holding space for somebody that you brought home to cherish and love, and it's frustrating you to hold space for that individual, that's a you thing. And it's not a, we're not sitting on a pedestal and saying this, right? I mean, you and I have had this challenge
Yeah.
where we've had to pick up the phone, and at least we have the awareness to pick up the phone and say, I'm losing it.
Yeah.
I want to snap, or I have snapped at this individual because I know I'm losing it. But the more, and this is why a lot of people who come into Barks come in, and I tell people this: go see the reviews, right? Most of the reviews will say this: my life changed. Who I am,
Hmm.
my relationship with people, my relationship with myself changed. So I think, in paying attention to the other, and I'm sure all of you will agree with this. This has happened to me too. The more I have learned to pay attention to the dogs, the more I have learned to pay attention to myself. It is
Yeah.
not self-sacrificial, it is self-enriching if you do it right.
Yeah.
If it's not self-enriching, you ain't doing it right.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And it's so interesting because when you talk with clients and they come in because of a specific reason, right? And when we are coming at the end of our journey together, that primary reason they came for still might be there, but their perspective totally changed. What
Yeah.
was the main problem at the beginning is not a problem anymore.
Yeah.
And that is so amazing when you see how they understand their dog better, know that, like, why things are happening, and they genuinely become happier in the relationship with their dog, when on the outside it looks like not much has changed, right? Because such little time has passed or whatever. But just that perspective shift is
Yeah.
it's amazing. And people start also looking at themselves differently, right? Because they might be, when they come in, like, I know that this happened with me. I was preoccupied with my failings, and when I started to accept my dog, I also started to accept myself, which is what you were saying, Sindor. And it was magic. I don't know another word to use it, but
Yeah.
it really changed my life. And it might sound over the top for people that did not go through this journey, but deciding to go like the Barks way completely
Yeah.
changed my life and my
Yeah.
dog's life. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to add, I don't think, like, I think again to what Sandur was saying, like, I don't think this means that none of us get frustrated or annoyed with what our dogs do, right? Like, we feel all of it. So there's a lot of, we can understand but still be annoyed and irritated. But I think the key is to acknowledge the annoyance, which may not have
Mm.
happened previously, right? And so, like recently, a client of mine said, it's taking me a lot of courage to tell you that my dog's barking really annoys me. And I was like, listen, we've got to celebrate this because this is huge, right? The fact that you're not fighting that anymore, and the fact that you're not putting pressure on yourself to be
Mm.
okay with it, or constantly trying to understand what's happening for your dog without actually understanding the impact of that on you is not okay, right? So let's acknowledge that this is the impact that it's having on you, and let's work from there. And I think that awareness is so important, which again I think comes from everything that all of y'all are sharing as well.
And I also think maybe like acknowledging that will again help you look at this individual in the ways that they're responding, because now it's communication, right? Like you're
Yeah.
annoyed, but now you're having this relationship that you're building also, because that's another facet of what we talk about, which is build that relationship with your dog. So you're doing that, but you're annoyed, and but you're listening to this dog who's responding to what you're saying. And so now you have to respond, right? And so how are you responding? You understand your dysregulation, you understand the dysregulation of the dog, and it's a messy place to be in for sure. Like, but it's progress, like you rightly said, right? Wherein you're able to recognize these things and also see the impact it is having on you. Because I think if you are in a relationship with any individual, you share a relationship, it does impact you. There is no way that you can say it doesn't impact. And so I think if you're building relationship and their response to you, especially I think defiance, because we are so used to obedience and expecting someone to say yes to what we are saying. That defiance, the dysregulation that might bring in us, I think that's a good space to be in. Messy for sure, but a good space to be in to recognize what's happening. And yeah, this happened with me too recently, where like lady went on a barking spree for 5 hours on the street in midnight. Okay, and I'm wondering what's going to happen to her, right? Because in my head, she's on the street, there are people who are getting annoyed with this barking.
Mm.
I am getting annoyed. I take care of her, she stays at home for most part of the day, and I am annoyed, I'm dysregulated because I'm not able to sleep, and I'm also worried for her safety, right? Because I
Yeah.
don't know how people would respond to this, right? There could be like random vehicles moving, and then if she starts barking at them, there's a safety angle. So that dysregulation, but also, okay, fine, she is unwilling to come home, she's unwilling to stop barking, and something is bothering her, and I don't know what's bothering her, and I can't solve that problem for
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
And that was a very difficult space to be in, right? Because we are so problem solving oriented in our ways with our dogs. But there are sometimes that you can't solve problems. You may have expectations of behaviors for your dog, even well intentioned ones, I suppose, in terms of safety or your dog's well being. But your dog has the agency, should have, or as an individual they have, then they would respond in manners that fit for them. But recognizing that is also important.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to kind of digress a little bit. And so we are talking about like trained behaviors. Art, of course, a subset of communication as we started out. But there is also a narrative that certain individuals are incapable, right? Like, for example, children are incapable. So you need to teach them how to be well behaved so that they are part of the society as a well behaved adult in the future. Similarly, I think there is also a perspective around dogs that they are incapable of being in human environments. Um, I want you guys to comment on that. Like, how do you feel about this narrative? Because I do think that a lot of times when we do talk about training or not training your dogs, and then building this communication and this relationship and this two-way bit between you and your dog, I think a lot of the conversation is also around, yeah, but we need our dogs to be safe in a human environment, and they don't know well enough how to do that. I'm sure we have had different experiences. I just want you to like chime in on that. Nobody.
I think we're
Not.
yeah,
Like,
I remember I put on a post on my Instagram where I said something along the lines like, dogs are so intelligent, like they can not just read our body language but also our emotions, and here we still are asking them to sit on our command, right? And I got so much comment along the lines of, my dog would kill everyone if they wouldn't be trained, my dog would die if first of all I was like, oh my god, poor dogs, poor dogs. And then I was like, where are these people, what is happening, like
yeah.
but it's just, I wish that people would see, for example, your videos, Sojanya, of the free living dogs in the park, and like just watch the videos, and can you tell me then that dogs need training to coexist with humans? Then we can discuss this.
Sindoor, what are you gonna say?
She's controlling herself
Yeah, she's
so
really
much.
controlling. It's
She's
so
like,
obvious.
what? Where do I start? What do I
Yeah.
say? Should I say?
And I'm sure she thought of something really witty right now to say.
Yeah.
Something witty or something bitchy to say. One of the two.
No, I'm trying to get my brain, like, I'm telling my brain, no, I'm not giving you permission to go down this path because you know the carnage that you want to cause. I mean, children are not able to do what? Not able to feel their own needs. Not, I mean, we're asking them to express their needs, and we're choosing to support that, trust it, and that's what we want to do, right? So when you say listen to them or hear them out, right, and hear their needs out, it's a need, it's a genuine physiological need. Are we saying they're not able to feel it or express it? Quite honestly, they feel it and express it much better than most of us adults do. So this comparison makes no sense to me. In fact, there's a lesson or two to learn there about expression of needs and expression of feelings and being in touch with it and expressing it pristinely. We are the ones who mask it, right? So what are we? Okay, so I think what we're saying is children are not capable of masking their needs like adults. And so let's train them on how to actually shut up so that they can fit into the adult world. And let's use the term, this is to keep themselves safe. We have used it on animals, we have used it on children, we use it on women. It's wrong every single time, it's problematic every single time, but it seems to be a fantastic tool to just make that argument and leave it there and not actually have to follow that up with reason and logic, right? Like, what is it that we are saying? Yes, I'm not suggesting, none of us are suggesting, let the dogs cross the streets on their own. Any of you do that? No. Any of us have any back student do that? No, that's not what we're suggesting. We're not suggesting that we put them on top of the kitchen counter and say, go ahead and cook your own meal, right? Here's the lighter, like, and here's the
You don't do that, Sindor? You don't? No?
I mean, I have been trying. I think that's what people think we do. I don't know. I don't know, right? Like, what is the intelligence that we're expecting of them? We are communicating and we are stepping in with boundaries. This is the other thing, right? No, we're not saying we're not having boundaries. We are communicating boundaries. What we're saying is, hey, don't be draconian about it and go in and say, I say this and therefore you will do this. Instead, build a relationship so that you can turn this into a polite request. How did this suddenly become an issue of, oh, they're not capable and they're just going to like run into traffic and get murderous and like this
Yes.
is getting very gory very quickly, man. Like, what is it?
Yes.
But also I think like two things, right? One is like a more light-hearted comment, which is like if you think your dog's gonna turn murderous, like that's a bigger red flag for a
Yes,
lot of different things
Mm,
in
yes,
life, right?
yes.
Like about your relationship, about what's going on with, like, it's a bigger red flag, right?
yeah.
So yes, if you have a murderous dog, please don't leave them off leash at all, and
Yes.
then think about what's going on there. But at the same time, I think to like acknowledge that outside of Sindhu's argument, which is obviously like a bigger question on how we see how we see children, how we see women, etc. Dogs are not children, and dogs don't have to fit into the moral, cultural expectations of the human world, right? Like there is this, like when we talk about coexistence, and so much of that has been the conversation on on Bhag's Grad's pages, which is what does coexistence mean, right? It means like it's almost like it's like a middle ground where both can coexist, right? Where both worlds can exist together. So if the only way that dogs can exist with us is if we completely colonize their ways and colonize their world and colonize their language, then that's a bigger red flag for lots of things. And then I think we really need to question why we're in relationship with dogs altogether. So I think this expectation that dogs have to be well behaved to what human imposed standards are is also weird. And I think like, and the reason why I'm calling it is weird is I'm assuming that everybody's operating one from a baseline of reasonable expectations, right? So beyond reasonable standards or outside of reasonable standards, it's weird. Like this idea of like, or even like things like, I mean, I've heard bizarre things like the idea of like when we give dogs treats or when we give dogs something from our plates, they should be grateful for what we're giving them. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Right? So I think like so much of this is like the human imposition of what we think dogs should do in our world. But what does it mean to learn more about their world and marry the two together in that vision of coexistence? I think that's also a question to think about.
And that's also, I think it's not, I think it goes beyond the dog, right? It's the way we view ourselves. And I think this comes back to the conversation we had a little bit earlier, which is sort of you're part of an oppressive system that you can't do
Yeah.
anything about, and so you have made peace with the place that you have been made to occupy in this oppressive system, and the way you want to do it is to turn around and start collecting on all the entitlements that you have, right? Like, I'm not given access to this. We spoke about biopower during Lives of
Yeah.
Streeties, right? This idea that I am put under pressure to behave. This is what somebody actually told me once in San Francisco, right? Like, we I learn how to behave a certain way. Why can't I expect the same out of the dog, right? So this is the classic internalization of this, right? You internalize your patriarchy, you internalize colonization, you internalize all of this and say, well, I have had to do this, so why can't I expect the same of the other? And once you see that as a valid argument
Yeah.
that I have and therefore I can, then it's a matter of, it's like token collecting, right? Like collecting
Yeah.
Pikachus or whatever it is, right? Like it's a matter of like, okay, how much more entitlement can I get from this person, that individual, that dog, that animal, so on and so forth. How much can I buy? How much can my money, my power, my status, my class, my color, so on and so forth, how much can it buy, and where can I buy it from, right? And that's kind of it because we have been conditioned to live in a society where we believe that the more of this we get, somehow we are elevating ourselves in this system, right? We're not. We're
Yeah.
not. The fact that you got your dog to sit on command has not elevated you at all anywhere.
Yeah.
Newsflash, right? It hasn't. in our minds, now I am the master,
Yeah.
not the oppressor, the master. This is what I used to. Yeah, I should not be allowed to go out of control like this. Like, you have to rein me in and say,
We will not do that, Sindor. You go
This is
off.
a this is a safe space that is just being live streamed to a lot of people. That's about
yes,
it.
it's very safe. That is the picture of safe, live streamed on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but when you think about it, right? I don't know for you, but when I was a kid, I had to be a good kid, right? My parents told me you have to be good. And that meant you cannot cause trouble. You have to suppress your feelings to not inconvenience others, and so on and so on. And I think we internalized it so much that we how do I put it, like don't we are afraid of how we are feeling because we are not allowed to say how we feel, and maybe that makes us uncomfortable with our dogs because they are not scared. Okay, I hope the dogs are not scared to show how they feel. And maybe that is uncomfortable because we see another individual. I know with Balt, like he's unapologetically himself, like accept it or not, like I'm gonna be me, this is who I am, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the thing, right? When we talk about, they're not able or they're not capable, again, the questions that I would ask, I would double click on it to say, I mean, explain, right? Like, what ability are you looking for? What
Yeah.
capability are you looking for? When it comes to their ability to read human communication, they are better than humans themselves. When it
Yeah.
comes to their ability to collaborate with humans, again, they are better than most humans are. When it comes to uh, their ability to actually pay attention to our desires, our boundaries. We had this conversation in one of the conclaves. They're very good at all of that. So, all of those abilities they have. In fact, to the extent that we had this conversation in the last conclave, we. Oh, okay. It needs charging. Yeah. um in the last conclave, we spoke about the idea that when we train them, we expect very, very lofty ideas like self discipline and things like that from them. That we're going to train a behavior, and when they feel challenged, when the environment is threatening, they're going to suppress all
Yeah.
their instincts and whip up this beautifully trained behavior because this is the morally right thing to do. This is what my master wants, right? Um, so they're capable of that, but they're not capable of reading human beings. Um, hmm,
Yeah.
it's not adding up. That
Yeah.
argument doesn't add up. That's why I had that expression on my face, because I'm like, I can't argue this because it isn't a reasonable argument to start with. It's riddled with holes. It's riddled with a lot of beliefs and things that we choose that they're not capable of, simply because it contradicts with our belief system. None of that is scientifically proved, and things that we know they're capable of, we don't want to internalize that. We want to look the other way because, again, it doesn't align with our belief system. And there are a bunch of things that we expect that they're capable of because that is convenient for us, when there is no
Yeah.
evidence that they're capable of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's easier to accept arguments of the trained behaviors being superior, because I think it's a matter of maybe that's what we're used to. Maybe that is what is the popular narrative. Maybe, that's what we have seen around us, that because people seem to behave acceptably when they are trained in certain ways. And anybody who goes a little away from this training is a rebel, is a black sheep, is a all of those words that we want to non-conformist, all of it, right? So it's easier to accept the argument that yes, we can train these things into our dogs, but just absolutely a blind spot to the fact that dogs are quite capable of a lot of things that we are actually expecting of them, right? If we kind of focus on that communication, on that relationship, on just also observing and regarding the dog in front of us that we spoke about, they are capable of coexisting and cooperating with humans, which I think this is the other thing that I was talking about my Instagram just today, which is dogs cannot, and I think Sindhu, you talk about this quite a bit also, which is they can't have conflict with humans. They live with humans, in human societies, in human ecosystems. It doesn't serve them well if they are in conflict to humans at all. And I was just looking up the study that spoke about how 63% of dog deaths, especially free living dog deaths, are because of humans, human influence deaths, which means that you can't have, I mean, dogs can't have that conflict with humans. So if we look at conflict between dog and human, then it is worth asking where that conflict is coming from. What's happening in that ecosystem? That ecosystem could be your street and neighborhood, but it also could be your house. Like, what is happening? Where is that conflict coming from? Because this is not natural for the dogs. That conflict is not natural. Actually, cooperation is natural. And if that is not happening, where is that coming from then?
Yeah, but I think, sorry, she's like urgent. Like I was just like, to what, to what?
Kind of an urgency, like
Yeah. It was like right there.
needs to come.
Before I forget, towards Aujanya said, I think about like seeking or valuing change behaviors more. I also feel like it reinforces or validates the illusion of like human superiority, right? Like how how easily and with so much pride would people say, "Oh, I trained my dog to do this. I trained my dog to walk away from a trigger that they're really scared of." Right? It in whatever way and shape it puts a lot of us down a pedestal if we were to say, "Oh, but my dog already is very intelligent." And I acknowledge and honor that intelligence. That's not palatable to us. We have to be the most intelligent species on planet Earth, right? And if we have a relationship with another animal, and again, I think it goes back into this whole idea of like continuing to like this pleasure that we get, I think, of taming, you know, and of like taming the wild and of like asserting like this sense of, oh, look what I've been able to do with this animal, right? Like finding ways to show that humans are capable of like removing that wildness from animals. There's some weird, like, I don't know, like it's just sadist, colonialist kind of nonsense that plays out. And I think that that's why it's so much easier to like move towards the idea of like training behaviors as opposed to doing that work of sitting down and saying, oh, you have things to communicate. Let's listen to that. Let's learn your language. Let's learn how you're communicating. Let's negotiate. Let's do the hard work that actually comes with being in relationship with each other. So yeah, I feel like that's a big one.
But we would rather like teach them, like the dogs,
Yeah.
which button to press that says
Yeah.
thank you. I want this black, this. We are so amazing as humans.
I mean, I'm just like, I'm really sorry, but I'm like, how lazy are you? Like, what's going on? Like, what's going on? Like, you're so lazy. And are you so disinterested? Then why do you have a dog? Like, can you imagine if I started, like, if I told Arnab, listen, I'm only going to communicate with you with buttons. I will not listen to you if you don't use buttons. Half of the time we'll be finding batteries for the damn buttons, yeah. It's so stupid. Like, it's just bizarre to me.
So first ever scene like should be late. I'm thrown off. I'm like, wait, what just happened? um but to your point of there's something sadistic, the pleasure that we get out of taming the wild. I think there's again a social and a cultural component to it, which is that we have constantly kind of romanticized and glamorized power. Is often seen as something that is a win lose, right? Like power is seen as something where you take something away, like cause harm, and the more harm you're able to cause, the more powerful you are. But I look around me, and that's one idea of power. For me, power is somebody who's able to affect humongous change for a lot of people around here. So we have a few people here who I consider are extremely powerful because they are able to show up in ways. I mean, it's amazing. Every time somebody in the community has a problem, they're able to show up. And they're able to show up not just by themselves, but they're able to show up in numbers. They're able to move people to show up for this individual, like get more people and rally more people. There are people who have the power to heal, which is a slow process. It's not destructive. There are the people with power to connect, who are able to connect in so many ways with so many people to benefit. But these are rarely seen as power. Power is often seen and associated with more destructive kind of an energy. And I think, and so we're always trying to find our power, right? Like, because we are part of systems that
Yeah.
take strip away our power. So we are trying to find our power, and we have been told that you're going to find your power when you engage in destructive things.
Yeah.
But many of us have tried it, many of us have been there. It's a bottomless pit. It doesn't happen. We know, and I have had this in the last 4 years. When Uttam died 4 years ago, I felt powerless. I felt that I would not be able to face the world. I didn't know how to face the world. Today, if you ask me, I feel extremely powerful. I built a house. I've managed to do this in a rural area. I have 24/7 electricity, though this one isn't charged, but I still have electricity. Okay. And I'm able to problem solve for me. I'm completely off the grid. I'm self-sufficient. I have a village for myself. I have an army of 4 dogs. I feel extremely powerful, right? But so much of that power has come for me from non-destructive stuff. My strength, my confidence has come to me because of constructive stuff. Building, nurturing, building a house, building communities, building relationships, nurturing the individuals. These 4 dogs are here not because I control them and train them. They're here because I took the time to this fellow here, dude who's sleeping here. I took so much time to get him, to allow me to touch him, right? That kind of work and the healing work and all of that, my power comes from there. And I wish we could see that the way to reclaim power is not through subjugation, but through nurture
Yeah.
and building. And if we saw that, and if we understood that, and if we utilize that tool, not only would we feel less emaciated, but we would feel far more empowered, but also that would be better for the world.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, just imagine the society that would be built on seeing power as nurturing and cooperation, and it would be a different world.
Yeah. And it's the thing, right? Like, so I think we keep thinking that power is about being unbreakable. No, power and strength is about realizing that you can fix yourself and mend yourself no matter how many times somebody breaks you. So you gain faith in your power of healing.
Mm.
You say, I have helped so many people, broken people, through this, to mend themselves into something so much more beautiful, right? The whole Japanese idea of kintsugi, right? You mend yourself with gold into something so much more beautiful. And I've done this so many times that I know that you can't break me. I mean, it's irrelevant if you break me or go, I mean, or not, right? I know that I'm going to mold myself into something beautiful. I've done it for others, I'll do it for myself. And that to me is power. If you think that power is about making yourself unbreakable, you are you're like a piece of glass.
Mm.
You're so tentative, and it takes so little to, like, just tuck and
It's so
break you and make
fragile.
you
Yeah,
go. And
yeah,
it's so fragile,
Hmm.
right? Because you're wanting not to break. Whereas somebody who says, break me, I'll glue myself back, isn't fragile, right?
yeah.
To me, that is strength.
Hmm.
Sorry, I'm able to hear you from the other room because Varun is watching it, and I'm like, yes, there are 2 times I'm getting the same message. Amazing.
One is in the earphones, one is the voice in the head.
Okay, so did anyone want to add further? Because there are 2 questions. Though we are not really answering questions, but I think it's good to like pick it up because we can like again go off of it if we want to. But anything else you wanted to add before we take up the questions? No, okay. So there's one question. I won't ask the question in its entirety, but it just talks about how there is a certain situation happening with this person's dog, where the dog is expecting or craving attention and presence during work hours, and how to communicate to fix this gripe. This is the statement. Is there something that you want to address? Because I feel like, of course, we've had this conversation about communication and relationship, but like how does that look in everyday situations like this, where you have this conflicting situation where you have to do something, you have to attend to something, and your dog is expecting you to be there? I think, how would this look in everyday life?
You guys are the consultants. You should know.
Nice one.
I have a very flexible schedule. So Zoe asks for attention, I'm there. The other day, Lady, who is our street dog plus also indoor dog, at this point I don't know who she is, what is our relationship, but we went like 1 year, 1.5 years it's taken us to go from, if not sharing any space, any surface together. So if she's sitting on a couch, we can't share the same place. If we come and then sleep on the bed where she's sleeping, she'll walk away. To last week, 10 minutes, she came to me and she's like, pet me while I occupied the same space that she was. And I enjoy offering that attention. So I don't even know if I'm the right person to be asking this question to.
I mean, you can learn to be ambidextrous. That's one. So, like, I have one hand on the laptop and the other hand is right here on the dog next to me. Um, I mean, I'm gonna let Eva like respond to like the details of it, but because she's also fellow consultant and all. Uh, but I think what I definitely want to share is, outside of like what you can do in the moment, I also feel like it's telling of, um I think it's an inquiry into like how present you're also with your dog outside of those moments, right? Because again, I think some of this comes from a place of obviously wanting connection, obviously wanting presence. And at least for me in my journey, I found that when I've really like thought about it, like so often I think I'm just like sitting next to the dogs, but I'm actually not present, right? I'm distracted by so many different things and doing so many different things. And so I think to also take this as an invitation to like reflect on how truly present are you with your dog, and what does like, are you able to like offer them that connection like wholeheartedly, or is it coming in like fragmented bits and pieces and not as consistently? So I think that's a larger question to reflect on, and then Eva can jump in with the nitty gritty.
No, I agree. It's not just the moment that the dog is asking for the connection, but it's the whole picture, right? We have to look like at the whole picture, at the relationship as a whole. It's not a zero, like nothing or all, like in every situation, right? Because yes, there are times where you cannot offer as much attention as the dog is asking for, but if you build a strong relationship, and are saying to the dog, okay, right now I cannot, but like give me 5 minutes to clear this absolutely necessary thing that I have to do, and then I'm all yours. I remember when I adopted Bald, he was like my shadow at the beginning. Me living the room that he was in was so distressful for him, and fortunately I work from home, so I was able to be there for him and meet this need when it arose. But it was not all or nothing, right? It was not, it maybe like it meant for me to sit with him, to touch him for 10 minutes, and then he was like, okay, now I'm fine, like I know you are here. But I think this builds over time, right? It's not, okay, I will do this every day for 5 minutes, like train it, let's say, like I will do this exercise of connection, and then I forget about the dog and the dog's needs. But it builds on top of each other. Like them seeing us, listening to them, I think changes everything. I think we think that they don't understand that we are there for them with, let's say, little things. But I would say I would disagree with that. I think they are so good. They do this relationships much better than we do, and they are much more patient with us than we are with them. So yeah, just like taking small steps, seeing what you can change in your daily routine, maybe sitting on the floor with your computer next to your dog, trying things out, because every dog is different, and something that will be like meet the need of connection for one dog might not be enough for another, right? So it's a trial and error, I think, and that's why the communication itself and looking at the dog, how they respond, is so important, because they will tell us what the right answer is, I think.
Yeah. And just to add, like this would essentially, I think, for a lot of us who've been in similar situations, this usually does become a situation where we do set a boundary, right? Where we do ask our dogs, "Hey, can't meet you where you are right now. Just give us a little bit of time." But the reason I think why we're talking about the needs first is because we also acknowledge that we can't be setting boundaries with our dogs without meeting those needs, right? That's just building more frustration. That's just building more disconnection. And so I think while boundary setting, yes, I think it's important to just take a few steps back and really think about what is the need present for the dog that's coming up, and how can we meet that outside of this moment, so that when we do set boundaries, it doesn't feel like the world is coming crashing down for the dog, right? The dog has the capacity to tolerate that boundary because there's a foundation in that relationship already present.
Yeah. And also like thinking about, like, they are extremely social beings, and for most of like pet dogs, I don't know what another word would be, like we are literally their whole world. We are the only thing that they have. And just thinking about, like, again, like putting ourselves in their shoes, how scary and painful it is if the only connection you have is not there for you, or is ignoring you, or is saying, oh, you are too clingy, you have to learn to not be so clingy. It's really hard when you think about it.
I have one last thing to add about this, which is take a couple of steps back also and think about what our relationship with idea of attention itself is. Because I think this idea of attention seeking has been demonized, I think, and I feel it quite strongly, because I was called an attention seeker, or like needing a lot of attention in relationships, and I knew where that was coming from for me personally, but I see how seeking that attention is seen in a very negative manner. And like, how Eva mentioned that for social beings, connection, social connection, having that someone to fall back on, that support system, whoever is, you know is so important. And not having it kind of actually escalates this need for connection, right? Like, so, if it is in dogs, I remember Sammy used to do this, where he would bark, right? And then he would bark, and when we would come home, he would jump on us, and he was like a big golden retriever. So it was not comfortable at all. But we realized over time it was just a matter of saying, I'm seeing you after a while. Can we just, spend a little time? When we started doing that, the escalation stopped to jumping altogether. And it was so obvious for us that, he would come, look at us, ask for attention so subtly, because if you're not, uh, paying attention to the dog, or like, how they communicate, you can completely miss it. He would just walk over to us and then go back, right? And then if we didn't pay attention to that, and then like meet his need of connection at that point, it would escalate to barking. And I think, it it was very fascinating to watch that, and it never escalated to jumping, because we would catch it with the earlier communication signs. But also, it never needed that much effort, right? Like, we didn't need to spend like hours paying attention or offering connection or whatever, because it would, like, this connection snacking that we can talk about, is because of offering connection in daily life, whenever we have opportunity, and making it possible. I think it uh, doesn't make it an effort when they ask for it. And then, as you rightly said, then you can say no and set a boundary, and say, not now, and I will not do it right now, but we can do this in some time. And I think that becomes easier also.
Yeah. Sindhu, are you satisfied with our answers?
I'm making notes. So assessment criteria met. um, Look, here's the thing, right? If a dog is not able to understand boundaries, see, this again comes back to one of the things that we brought up a little earlier, which is the question that you ask, right? What is it that you want to communicate? Are you wanting to communicate,
Yeah.
hey, I want the dog to stop doing this? Basically, this is the behavior I want of the dog. How do I communicate that? Again, wrong audience. You're asking the wrong
Yeah.
set of people, right?
Yes.
Uh, but if you're saying, hey, how do I communicate, like what is the right communication in this moment? The communication that is, listen, right? Like the dog is saying something to you. What is the dog saying? At the surface of it, it's a simple thing: I want attention, and this is in contradiction with what I'm willing to give. What the dog is asking is in contradiction with what I'm willing to give, and therefore the dog will change its behavior. That's not going to get you very far, right? Like
Yeah.
that. Whereas double click on it, right? Like the dog wants attention. Why is that saying, hey, not right now, I need a few minutes? Dogs should be very, very capable of understanding that. If they're not understanding that, what's going on? That's a double click that you need to do. That's the big brains of yours that you put to use, right? Like the big human brain, you do that analysis. So what is it that what are the things that come up, right? So it could be, yes, connection need is not being met through the day. It
Yeah.
could be the dog is going through something hormonal. Many female dogs, around their heat, whether or not they're neutered, can have periods when they want more attention,
Yeah.
right? They could be going through pain. Pain also has a tendency to make the dogs clingy. These words that we use, right, to demonize it, but that heightened connection need, right? Or it could be that they're not yet having a secure attachment with you. So maybe it's an attachment issue. So maybe this is not about how you respond in that moment at all, but rather how you're showing up in other moments, reassuring what you need to do. So, for instance, if it's a CE 101 student who has asked this question, the reassurance module or the lifestyle module, empty the cup. Maybe full and they're not able to regulate it all. That's why they're there with you, because just you talking on the phone is like
Yeah.
filling their cup up, right?
Agree.
So that could be it. And the other thing, right? Expecting, we just had this conversation. Dogs are not capable, children are not capable, dogs are not capable. But a dog has to understand that you're sitting in front of a thing that looks like a flat piece of cardboard, and you're having a conversation like there's a human being there. And the dog has to process this. Maybe that my Chiru would have problem with this, right? Like, I sit in front of the camera and talk animatedly, and she's like, she would come and bark at me. Maybe she's there saying, you're losing your mind, you're talking to cardboard, right? Like,
Yeah. And to understand that to understand that this is a high stake conversation, and
yes,
that they're not supposed to vocalize, like, next
yes.
level. Yeah.
Exactly, right? And we're having animated conversations, we are laughing, we are expressing, and there's audio coming on the other side that's expressing this. There's no dog who doesn't want to show up to the party, right? Most of them, if you're having two people are having a conversation and laughing, try keeping a dog out of that. They want to be part of it. So they've come here, want to be part of it, but they don't know what they're part of. What they want to be part of. I can understand the confusion. The dog is like, listen, I'm losing my mind. What is this sorcery, right? It could be a whole host of things that's going on that we need to try to figure out. But that's a double click that we need, which you would do if the conversation, the communication wasn't one-sided. If for you, the communication is two-sided, then you would be like, okay, I need to listen. Right? You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Do it in that proportion, right? Like, I need to listen. So I need to listen more than I have to say. So what is the next message? Yes, I get attention. Great. Attention seeking barking. Great. But that's very simple, right? Next step. Why is boundaries not working? You can ask that, and your dog will communicate that. There will be communication for you and breadcrumbs for you all through the day that you can figure out what's going on. But again, I think this is the kind of paradigm shift that we need, which is, don't ask me how to get the dog to do or not do something. That I don't have good answers for that, because I don't care about that. That's not interesting to me. Given the amount of power that we have, that's easy peasy. That's not interesting to me, right? What is really interesting here is to understand what they're saying, and I think that's where we can bring in like excellent insights.
Yep.
Okay, amazing. Loved it. Sindhu is going all out on this.
Yeah.
I love it.
She's exceeded her own assessment criteria.
Yeah. It's off. Okay, so I can't see my own face, so I almost feel anonymous now. So the filter is off. Not that the filter never was on. Yeah, I don't know. I've lost myself in my own analogy, because that filter never existed anyways. So I don't know what exactly I
The
lost.
illusion of the filter that you were holding on
the
to.
illusion of the filter also is gone. Yeah.
Okay, so there's another question. The scenario is your dog is sick. How have you folks navigated communication when the vet's advice and what your dog is showing they want to do are at odds? For example, and I think they've rephrased the question saying navigated internal fear of doing the wrong thing for their health. So you're kind of battling a little bit about, should you take the advice of the others and listen to what the others are saying, especially when it comes to health, sickness, life and death questions and stuff like that, or trusting what the dog is saying?
Such a simple question.
Just one right answer.
Are we spending another 3 hours talking about this question now?
Do we have like coupons for like therapy after?
Yeah.
Because
all of us collectively felt our ears tightened.
Yes.
Yeah. All of us.
Yeah.
Oh, tough one. I mean, whoever asked the question, my heart goes out to you. Like, I know. Yeah. I know how difficult that is. Like, it is so freaking traumatic and difficult. Yeah.
I think there is nothing. I mean, because honestly, I think this is a tough situation and tough call. And I think for each of us who have experienced that grief, there's no right answer. And I think you always question, should you have done something else? So, like, I think if I would just make it a generic thing of emergencies, right? Or like, where safety like real safety of life and death comes to situation, for example, or like hurtful situations where you're hurting another, like the dog is probably getting in a fight of another with another dog or biting another human. I think safety situations are very different and play out very differently than a well regulated space of communication. And I think we see that with humans too. So I think I would make this a little more generic of emergencies, safety kind of situations. And I think, again, there is no right or wrong way to address it. In that situation, it's a matter of diffusing it and addressing it the way you can in that moment, I suppose, with all that you have information at that point.
Yeah, but I have a feeling this question, the person who has the question is probably asking more of like a medical question. And I mean, with Chiru, I know that I tried very hard. I would, and I know it was not just a professional. I also kind of made the mistake. I don't know if it's the right or the wrong thing, but I had like multiple doctors consult that I was consulting with, and they were giving me like opposite advice. And then anybody and everybody who's even like seen a picture of a dog was an expert, right? Like, so I was getting advice from everywhere. I was very, very, very difficult, right? So even things like, for instance, there were people like, oh, have you tried this and have you tried that? And I know they're trying to be helpful, but for me it was like, I am overwhelmed. I'm already doing everything that I can, and everything that you bring up to me saying, have you tried this, is also a reminder of one more way how I'm failing this losing battle, right? It's just a reminder. So I couldn't deal with that either. And I know that I tried to, having experienced grief and death, I thought I was preparing myself, so I would like sit and have a conversation with myself on this very swing. I know um what's the right thing to do. Should I be listening to the dog? Should I be listening to the doctor? Should I be listening to my gut? And I would ask myself, okay, which of these decisions allows me to sleep at night? um but um it didn't it didn't work that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And I think I regret about 50% of my decisions.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty damn sure if I had changed that and taken the other decision, I'd have still regretted that. I think that's a very uh, like, I don't feel like it's a right or wrong answer. I think with that it comes down to what is it you can go to sleep at night, like which of the decisions you can be at peace with. That's, I think, the criteria, especially when you're dealing with something like that. But in all honesty, it comes with the caveat that even if you asked yourself, what is that decision that I can take and go to sleep at night after having taken this, even then it's going to give you sleepless nights, because
Yes.
that is the messiness of relationships.
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult dance between advocating for your dog when you have more information about what's going on with them, and advocating for your dog when they're telling you whatever they're telling you. It's like, and it's everybody's own mess. None of the messes look the same at all in any which way. I think from my experience, I think I overrode my intuition and my attunement with mutton, uh, for what vets had recommended, and I regretted that. And with Lucci, I was extra sensitive and I led with my gut and what she was telling me. And I still questioned it and I still judged myself for it.
Yeah.
So it's just a mess. There is no easy way out of it. And I don't think like, I think, and I get it, right? I think like in moments like this, I think like we crave like structure, we crave clarity, we crave a framework, to guide us through that decision making. And There just isn't. I think it's so much, and I wouldn't even say it's so much feel based. It's a combination of like your heart and brain working together and going in overdrive, uh, and I think at the same time, I think to just like find ways, and this is the difficult part, right? Is to like, and I think I was resonating with what Sindhu was saying, which is like to just keep your heart, eyes, ears open for all the knowledge and not get like debilitated by the knowledge and information that's coming your way, whether it's your system, what your vet is saying, what your dog is saying, like to just be open and still process what's coming in and then be led by that. Um, yeah, there's no, yeah.
Yeah. And I think we are all talking about like the extreme situations when it comes to health and medical situations. But I think like I've struggled with this in like normal medical situations too, like, because you don't, you want to advocate for your dog, but you don't want your dog to suffer or like undergo that medical discomfort. And we know, like, personally I go through like chronic issues and medical health issues. So I know it is very difficult to balance what someone else is saying versus what we are feeling we want to do versus what everybody around us, well-wishers, are asking us to do. And I think the same thing, right? Like your decisions, it's very difficult to like justify it in the long run. And you always are in conflict of what's being given to you as advice, what you end up doing, what your dog is feeling through that entire bit. I mean, we had to vaccinate lady a few days back because we had like a scare of canine distemper, and she hated it. She hated it. Bala normally like hangs around in the front porch, and he ran away and did not come back till those people were hanging around in front of our house. Even that is a question, like, should I have
Yeah.
put lady through this, or should I be like, okay, fine, she'll figure it out, or whatever, or we'll figure out the treatment if it comes down to it. Or Bala did not get vaccinated eventually, so like, okay, now how do we deal with this, right? And I think that's a constant question, even if
Yes.
it's a matter of vaccination. And I did not want to vaccinate Zoe, but then we had to. So then that's a question of, should I have, and did I do the right thing, right, of vaccinating? So there's a like it's always there in all three situations with all three of them. I was not comfortable with how it went out, and I'm not sure whether what I did was right or wrong. Should I have done it or not? And I think that's a battle of every medical emergency. I think it comes down to the same questions that we have to deal with as caregivers, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Recently, I had a Iti has had a ear infection, and I was prescribed three medicines, antibiotic, steroids, and something else. And I was like, antibiotics and steroids. I mean, am I going to do this? 10 days of antibiotics plus steroids? Like, am I hard one?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, am I qualified to have an opinion on this? Like, what am I doing, right? Like, should I not? This person like spent a good 5 years, 6 years studying this and has been working with this and tells me do this. Should I be questioning it? But then don't I know my dogs better?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is this person who hasn't been around know my
Yeah.
dogs? I'm the one who has to deal with the grief of losing the dogs. I'm the one who knows how much I hated it the last time I did steroids and what path that went down. It was a path of no return for me. So I did not do the steroids this time. Paid off. Infections gone. So good this time. But
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
that I will have that doubt again the next time.
Yeah.
And not that anybody is going to come and say, yes, here, this is the actual fact. This is the thing to do. If you do this, this is the golden ticket. There will be no disease and death. Like anybody gets the ticket, please pass it along. Like we've been waiting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah.
Carolyn says that I know this won't help, but even vets feel the same when it comes to the animals we live with. So I think it's a very caregiver,
Yeah.
bit, right? Like, the the decisions we make for our dogs and to deal with the consequences of the decisions we make. Sometimes we override what our dogs want. Sometimes we go with what our dogs want. Each of them pay off. Sometimes each of them don't, I think.
Yeah.
And we have to deal with what happens, I guess.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Like what? So I think finding it, rather than trying to find what is right or wrong to do, I think finding where your moral radar is pointing, right, I think is a more useful thing to do. So I find it a little easier to say that, okay, regardless of what happened, at least I gave the dog the choice
Yeah.
in this matter, right?
Yeah.
But I also know that there are some people who find it extremely disturbing to go against anything society tells them. So in which case, you probably are not going to be able to see through going against social ideas. You're not going to be able to see that through, right? There's no point in pretending that you can or want to walk that path, because that's too disturbing for you at this point.
Yeah.
This are like dog health, dog care, like it can be such a difficult situation on itself. And then the self-punishment of I made the wrong decision, I did this, like because of me this dog is suffering, died, whatever. If I chose a different thing, like everything would be different. Is like we torture ourselves even further, and this is much easier said than done. Maybe being a bit easier on ourselves, or just reminding ourselves that we did the best that we knew how. I did not manage that. But maybe this and this, the sense of community, the people around us that are just there for us to listen and not to say, oh, but you could do this, or oh, you don't have to feel this way. Just someone to be there. Maybe not even like physically, because I know like all of us are in different parts even of the world. But for me, just knowing that you are out there made it more bearable for me. So yeah. Who thought that this conversation will go in this way?
I was just wondering, like we started, in fact, I wanted to say, so Carolyn was saying that she won't be able to attend it live, right? But I think she made it at a later stage. I'm like, if in case you're wondering how the communication went into medical advice, yes, please watch from the beginning.
This is why I didn't bother looking at what the topic of the day is. But we're not going to stick to it anyways.
And I love at some point Sajanya went like, to digress, so let's talk a little bit about trained behaviors and communication. And I was like, that's bringing us back to topic, friends, because we will digress.
But the fact of the matter is that I don't think we can have conversation about all of this without looking at it culturally. And I think all of our conversations just lead it back there, right? Because I don't know if we can answer the questions of communications versus trained behaviors, but I think it's a lot to do with our mindset towards both ideas and how we feel about it and how we use it, leverage it in our relationships. So yeah, I don't think any of the conversations we had today is out of topic. It's all within the topic frame, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
If you say so.
It's your channel, so
we can do whatever we want.
You can write down the chapters for the chat. It's fine.
That's a lot of work. That is a lot of work now. But it was a fun conversation, though we did end it on a very, very difficult note, I guess. But it was a good conversation, and I think I did want to have this conversation, and I wanted to do it with you guys. So I'm glad that we did, and we brought out all of the things that we wanted to about this topic. I'm sure there's a lot more to say as well. But thank you, all of you. I know Sindhu is nodding. Yeah, I had a lot more to say. But I want to ask all of you if there's something that you want to share, any where you guys want them to find you, if there's any offering that you have that you want to share with the people who are watching, all of it. Please go ahead. Take turns.
Sindur, what's your offering?
I am the well, I'm very excited about canine communication, the course that we have put out for free. So yeah, I mean, it's free and it's 2 hours. So it's a fun thing to get started if people haven't. And maybe I'll have a blog out soon about the dogs. I do have some special stories to share. So that's my favorite way of connecting with anybody who wants to connect. Is the stories I write on my blog.
And I think that's on brand for the topic. At least there is communication there. So
Yeah.
whether we manage to say it or not, I hope that course will.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sylvie?
No, just find me on Instagram. Just hang out on Instagram with me, and then we can figure things out together. I feel like that's the invitation.
Yeah.
And they'll find you on Luci and Muttons.
Yeah,
On
Luci and
Instagram.
Martins. Yeah, correct.
Amazing. Eva?
Yeah. Come hang out on Instagram or YouTube with me, and that's it. If you want to, if you don't want to, it's okay.
Amazing. So lovely. And all of us are on Instagram, so you can find us there. Sindhu is also there. She's also there on Barks, BHARCS, education. So find us there. And I'm so glad you all stayed through the 1 hour, 40 minutes of the conversation going everywhere. So thank you to the audience, and thank you to all of you for coming here. We should do this more often, which is what I always end it with. So we must do this again. New topic, a new topic, but I think in the same vicinity of the conversations, because that is what
I mean, does the vicinity even matter? Like, we just go everywhere and come back everywhere all the time.
We start somewhere, and we let that is why. So, and on the group, I did ask all of them, like, what did you want to talk about? And they were like, we'll just see where this conversation takes us.
So professional. Anything specific you want to talk about? And I'm like, is there even sense in mentioning anything?
Because we will never stick to the script, even if we did have topics. And I think these conversations are better, like, bounced off as a discussion than like preparing anyway. So if you do hang out with us like this, you will see us our conversations go in this manner.
Yeah.
Well, this is the best behaved we've been on conversations like this. Not all.
Yeah, we were very well behaved.
This level of professionalism and good
We
behavior.
were very well behaved. Yeah.
Well, I was borderline, but
No, you were fine.
yeah,
You were fine. Yeah.
you're
and
lowering the
also-
bar by the day for me. This is not good news for me.
No, you were fine.
Don't
We
enable
saw
that.
you. We saw you inch little bit, but you came back. You came back. Very self-disciplined you were, I have to say.
Well,
Yeah.
just last month we spoke about self-discipline and dogs. I'm like, listen, we have to
Yeah.
demonstrate that human beings like me do have some, like some part of it.
Yeah. Very good, very good.
Yeah, I think we all were well behaved just because it was a live, and it was also very public audience who can find us at any point later too.
Yeah.
So I think that was it. But closed box conversations are not like this.
Yeah.
Yes, we will not talk about that in public platforms.
Yes, we will not. Okay. Thank you so much. Have a good
Thank you.
night.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day. And I am
Bye.
ending the stream now.
Yeah.